Hi everybody, I am Darla Reborn, encouraging independent thought and challenging popular opinion. It's been a while and I've been dealing with a lot of things, but I've decided to keep my word. I said I'd be here and I feel like I kind of lost my voice a little bit, and it's something that I want to discuss further in another video. But I feel like it's a problem that is common amongst people who've experienced some form of sexual abuse in their lives. This feeling that you can't speak your truth, that your emotions are bottled up, that you have to hold things on the inside of you, and where you have a sort of shame about who you are, and you don't feel like you're able to articulate how you feel. Because your thoughts and your feelings don't matter. Some of the beliefs are that nobody's going to care, or that you're going to look weak, or that you'll be made fun of. But at the core of it is this idea or this feeling that your thoughts and your feelings just don't matter. Other people's matter, just not yours. And I want to talk a little bit about my experience. When I was about 16 or 17, I was in a church service, and a young adult lady was talking about her experience of being sexually abused. And as she was talking about and telling her story, I was sitting out in the audience and I just started to feel very uncomfortable. Like I felt like a spotlight was on me and that everybody knew my secret. And it wasn't until I was in that program that I realized that I had totally forgot about what had happened to me as a kid. I felt so uncomfortable, like I couldn't sit still. I felt like I was gonna bust. A part of me felt like I wanted to run away and leave. And I just didn't want to draw any attention to myself because I felt like I was being told on. It was so weird. Somehow I had completely blanked out and forgotten about what had happened to me. And so it was a few programs later where I told what had happened to me. I was about 5 years old when it happened. But I had never told anybody in my family. They were, my mom, my dad, my siblings were there. None of them had heard my story. And I know that they were stunned to hear. But when I was about 5 or 6 years old, a bunch of kids and I, we were playing at a relative's house. And we were playing like hide and go seek, just running around the house. And I was coming around the corner of the hallway. And one of the bedrooms, which was dark, was like right the first room around the corner that I was walking around. Something told me not to go in there. And I just want to let you all know that if you ever feel like something in your gut is saying don't proceed, go with your gut. It knows things that you don't know, So I didn't do that. And somebody in the room had called me into the room. It was like two boys sitting there. Like I said, I was about 5 or 6. They looked like they're around 11 or 12, maybe 13-ish. And I went in hesitantly, but once I got in, I don't remember exactly how, but the little boy had, he asked me to pull down my pants. And after I did, he like pinned me down. And he proceeded to use some kind of object, which today I have no clue what it is. And he was using it to try to penetrate my anal cavity. Like he was like sticking, and it hurt. And I was telling him to get off of me until like I was fighting with all my 5, 6-year-old might, and I couldn't get him off of me. And I don't really remember a whole bunch after that, but I remember, I remember feeling ashamed and embarrassed. And I think they were laughing. You know, what's so crazy about that situation, it was devastating for me, but for them it was entertainment. Like I'm clear that they didn't know the gravity of what they were doing to me and how much it impacted me and how much I was being violated at that time. But for them, it was entertainment, and they let me go on my merry way, and I didn't say anything to anybody else. And what's crazy is that I had other scenarios after that as a child, and some as an adolescent and an adult, in which men have tried to coerce me or tried to push me. Like I remember in high school, no, it was before my freshman year in high school. There was this program that we went to in the summer, and we were in the pool. We were all together. Some guy came up to me, and he tried to stick his finger inside of me while we were at the pool. And I hit him, and, you know, I made a big noise and he ran off. But it was just like, I can look back to other events in my life in which a man felt that somehow it was okay for him to do inappropriate things, to suggest inappropriate things, to try to coerce or manipulate me. One of the last situations that I experienced before I got married was my freshman year in college, and an older man, he was about 10 years my senior. He had several experiences with other freshman girls at Oakwood. He had already graduated. He was actually in a graduate program at the time. And we hung out, we were friends. I went to a couple events with him. And he would always talk about the other guys and how other guys were inappropriate. They wanted inappropriate things from ladies, but that wasn't him. And he was gentle. He opened doors. He closed doors. He had an image of looking like a decent person, you know, gentle, soft-spoken. But one night we were around friends, and everyone had left. And I didn't feel comfortable asking for a ride home. And I ended up staying that night with him. Him on one couch, me on the other. I felt trapped, but I was afraid to say, I want to get the heck out of here. And what was crazy about it was I was in a neighborhood of young women that I knew who were in college at the time. And a part of me in my soul just wanted to run and knock on their door and be like, please save me. I didn't do that. I was too afraid. I didn't have a voice. So the next morning, I was still there. We were hanging out. We watched something on television. Another thing about that situation that was really disturbing was that he attempted to watch something on television that was very violent and disturbing with me, that I made it clear I wasn't comfortable watching. But anyway, I was lying down. He came up behind me, and he had tried to touch me, or not really touch me, but get me to touch him, to touch his genital area. And I'm sitting there not touching him the whole time, and I eventually get up while this whole charade is going on. And I'm thinking, after that weekend happened, why am I 19 years old, but still feel like that 5 or 6 year old girl who didn't have a voice, who couldn't fight off? Here I am, a grown woman now, 19 years old, physically capable of fighting off, and I didn't. Like, I got up, yeah, but I didn't have that voice. I didn't feel as if I had a right to verbalize my feelings, to defend myself, to represent my honor. I was at someone else's mercy again. And it was after that situation that I realized I needed to go to therapy, because work had not been done. I was still at 19 feeling like a victim of sexual abuse. It's like, wow. Okay. So that helped me to realize that I needed work. So I had started going to therapy. This was, I began going my freshman year, and throughout that summer, I continued to go, and I eventually stopped. And I'm saying all this to say, number one, we need to be empowered to tell our stories. And I've never actually talked about the situation with the young man. And I definitely haven't told my molestation story on YouTube or really in any other venue outside of when I told my story at church in prayer meeting. And I told my mom after that, we talked about it, but I really haven't said a lot about it. And the unfortunate reality is that it's so common. There are so many instances in which people have been violated and they don't feel liberated to talk about their shame. The nasty thing about the shame of when you've been sexually abused, assaulted, violated, whatever word you want to use, even harassed. I want to just say that right now, because when it comes to, I'm going to talk about this. We tend to validate the pain of people who experience outright and obvious signs of abuse. You know, the physical, the hand, but we don't validate the experience of people who have experienced verbal degrading behavior. And sexual harassment is a form of degradation that is very inappropriate. Once you said things to people that are violating, that are disregarding, dishonoring, and disrespectful, you don't have to put your hands on them in order for it to become abuse. It's already abuse. It's already inappropriate. And you've already crossed a very serious boundary. So sexual harassment is a big piece of that. It kind of was discussed in popular, I guess, social networks when a woman came out with a video of street harassment and the experience that many women have of being told that how to, to look, to smile, and ask for dates. And a lot of people thought, what's the big deal? It's not so much about what's said as it is the attitudes behind the behavior. In our society, we tend not to hold men accountable for their sexual conduct, whether they're politicians or religious leaders. We'll sit them down and we'll say, they cheated on their wives or whatever. But in general, we expect men to behave inappropriately sexually. When women are raped, people will ask what time she was out or what she had on, or whether or not the man she was raped by had a previous sexual experience with him. So there's a lot of questions for her. When a woman's hit, oftentimes people will ask what she said or what she did to cause or to invoke rage. When it comes to a lot of men's behavior, we have a hard time holding them accountable. And I made some comments about a statement that Mike Huckabee had made, and I have this on my Facebook. Excuse me, I apologize for that. I have to read this because he made a statement that was so disgusting. I had to rant about it. Here we go. Mike Huckabee. Josh Duggar was a teenager. The girls were almost teenagers. In biblical times, they could have been married. The only reason liberals are attacking Josh is because he has been a faithful warrior against the perversion of sexuality. That statement was made on May 22nd, 2015. Now, I went on a rant on my Facebook page about that. The Duggars and the situation they're dealing with is a great motivation behind this video. The actions that were taken by that teenager were the same actions that were taken by the person who molested me, okay? He may not have been adult. He may not have a record as a sexual predator, but what he did violated every young girl who was involved, who couldn't fight, who couldn't defend herself, who wasn't strong enough to push him away. It created a seed in which most of these girls, just like me and just like all other victims, feel and embody the shame. The shame of what has happened somehow now becomes a part of their identity. And instead of blaming the person, they've taken on this guilt, and they believe that because they've been violated, that now they're filthy, that somehow they're nasty, they're disgusting. There's a shame that victims of sexual abuse feel about their bodies. Let me tell you something that I realized looking back that brought tears to my eyes when I thought about my adolescence. I used to go outside. I used to cover my body. And in a religious culture, modesty is definitely something that's embraced. There's a scripture in the Bible that talks about shamefacedness. That's how women should carry themselves, with shamefacedness. And that's it's in the King James Version. But no one should ever be ashamed. And sometimes a big piece of modesty, which we have to be very careful of in our teachings, because even as a mother, I'm a breastfeeding mother of my children, and there's a lot of negative commentary around the women's bodies. And even though my breasts were created to nourish life, somehow my body has been relegated to a sexual organ for the entertainment and pleasure of men. And a lot of modesty can come from a spirit of shame. And I used to go outside in a hot summer days and keep a jacket on. I didn't want to take it off. I didn't want my body to be seen. I did have eating, I did overeat a lot, but I was never like obese or really heavy or anything like that. And I know that weight can become a shield that people use. And what I realized I was using, I used clothes. I would cover my body, and I didn't want anybody to really see me for real. I had shame around my body. And like I said, this can be encouraged, that you're faulted as a woman when you have curves, that somehow you can ensnare a man. And we need to hold men accountable for their behavior, because this is not only harmful to women, but this is harmful to men and to boys, because you need to be responsible for your behavior. And I'm a woman, and I'm a female victim or former victim of sexual abuse, but there are male victims. And the secrecy around sexual abuse is so great. And I believe that our culture embraces women telling their stories and being more comfortable being vulnerable than men. There are a lot of men who go to the grave never sharing the shame around the sexual abuse they've experienced. And I just want to let you know, if you hear me and you're watching this video right now, it was not your fault. Whether or not you felt strong enough, like when I was in middle school, I started lifting weights, and I decided that I was never going to be victimized again. I decided that if need be, I was going to fight off the person who attempted to do something in the future. I used to carry fear about being raped. I felt like there was I just didn't trust men. A big piece of me maintaining my virginity was about not trusting men. It wasn't just merely because I wanted to stay pure, quote unquote. It was because I did not trust and respect men's sexual integrity. And it's so important that you give a voice to that child. If you were a child when it happened, it wasn't your fault. If you were a young adult, if you were a teenager, it wasn't your fault. A big piece of rape is what looks like compliance and consent. Oftentimes rape victims will go along with what happens because especially when an aggressor is violent. What they're attempting to do is thwart off any further violence and aggression by compliance. Some rapists actually get off on a person who fights them. And so sometimes people who have been victimized and raped will appear to be going along with it when they're not. Now, I can also talk about another story. Things come out in the news and the media all the time about rape. And yes, there are women who lie and who lie about scenarios that never happened. But this video isn't about them. This video is about you, and you know what happened to you. All right, because you know the shame and the pain you've carried for however long. I don't know if you've carried it for 10 plus years like me, or 20, or 30. But whatever happened to you was not your fault. And love yourself enough to tell your truth to somebody, even if it's your journal. Write it down. Say it to yourself. It's important to acknowledge and give a voice to something you've hidden. Don't hold on to it. You are not alone. Know that what you've experienced is not something that's just happened to you. If we were all to share our stories, we would be surprised, shocked, comforted, and disgusted to know just how common this issue is. And all of us carry the shame that is not ours. There's nothing wrong with you. Nothing's wrong with your body. It's not because you were, not pretty enough, or because you somehow provoked inappropriate, abusive behavior from someone. You got to know that it was not your fault. Okay. So if you need to talk to someone about it, to go to therapy, hash out those feelings, those events, and confession gives us power. The secret has been holding you hostage. So if you have that secret, don't hold on to it. It's like you're prison to your own truth. Share it, even if it's to yourself or your journal. Talk to someone who you can trust, but let it out. Don't hold on to that, because it is not your shame that you're holding on to. What you're holding on to is what someone else did to you. Not you. You're not the problem. All right. And as long as we hold on to this, people who commit these things aren't being held accountable for it. And nobody's really getting better. Nobody's getting healed. And we have to heal ourselves. We need to stop excusing nastiness and inappropriateness. It's not okay. People need to be held accountable for their behavior. What I do sexually, I am accountable for it. Nobody else is responsible for my sexual behavior, right? I have to own what I do, and we have to hold men and women accountable for their behavior, okay? So I hope that my video has been an encouragement to someone out there. The situation with the Duggar girls is it's one example in the media that's come out about a major issue that's been going on for forever. And we are in a rape culture. When you're in a culture that people excuse this behavior and say, oh, it was dealt with once, as if somehow going to counseling at one point in your life means that you'll never have to suffer the consequences of sexual abuse. For those of you who've experienced it, you know that some of the consequences linger. And even if the form of it lingering is in how you perceive your own body or your own sexuality, it's still a consequence sometimes of what has happened to us. Having our no taken away from us, having your no and your fight taken out of you, and somebody putting their will onto you and trying to force you into something you did not want to do nor consent to. It has consequences. So it's important to be sensitive to that and not excusing inappropriate behavior, looking at the roots behind the behavior, because often perpetrators have been victims. So we got to talk about it. So hopefully the door has been open for us to take this discussion further. You're not alone. All right. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all next time. Take care. Bye-bye.